students, welcome back. So, some of the motions occurred by the scapula or the internal and external rotation and anterior and posterior tilting. And these movements cannot be seen individually, and these movements are very much required, or these movements plays a very important role to maintain the scapula along the curved rib cage. So normally this internal and external rotation is accompanied with the protraction and retraction of the scapula. Protraction and retraction of the scapula. Approximately 15 degrees to 16 degrees of internal rotation occurs at the acromioclavicular joint during normal elevation of the arm. So a larger amount of internal rotation of the scapula on the thorax that is isolated to the acromioclavicular joint as a result of which forms the prominence of the vertebral border, as a result which forms a prominence of the vertebral border of the scapula. As a result, so it loses contact of the thorax. So this is oftenly referred clinically as winging of scapula. Of course, here in this biomechanics, we are using this winging for normal to study normal biomechanic motion, but here this one is a pathological winging of scapula. Here we are seeing here is the pathological winging of scapula. Excessive internal rotation, see here, excessive internal rotation. So what will happen? So during protraction, the scapula is moving away from the vertebral column, isn't it? So during this protraction, what will happen? This vertebral border becomes prominent, isn't it? So that is normal winging of scapula. Once the excessive internal rotation occurs, which is the indication of some pathology inside the muscles which are controlling this movements. So normally this winging of scapula is caused by this serratus anterior. This muscle helps in overhead abduction. Maybe some paralysis or some weakness of those muscle will causes this winging of the scapula, which causes excessive internal rotation of the scapula, indicates that some pathology or some poor neuromuscular control of scapulothoracic muscles, especially the serratus anterior muscle. So maybe weakness of the serratus anterior muscle or paralysis of the muscle, maybe a muscular disease or maybe a nerve injury which causes such kind of pathology. Okay, so this is here in this pic you can see this posterior aspect when the person is attempted to elevate the arm. So here the elevation is the flexion. So there is a prominent vertebral border we can see here. Okay. Whereas in this superior view also we can see this excessive internal rotation of the scapula is occurring at the acromioclavicular joint. So we can see this this vertebral border. So the person is sitting in front of the couch. So the scapula, how much distance it occupies once during this elevation. So it is the scapula, this posterior border is more visible in such excessive internal or rotation of the or excessive rotation of the scapula at the acromioclavicular joint causes prominence of the medial border of the scapula with attempted elevation of the arms. So this one is also the pathological one. This is not, these two are not normal elevation, normal rotation, internal rotation of the scapula. So this is some of the pathological condition, so which are caused by poor neuromuscular control of the scapulothoracic muscles. Okay, next, another one, normal internal and external rotation is associated with protraction and retraction of the scapula. The normal degree of internal rotation is 15 degrees to 16 degrees. Coming to the anterior and posterior tilting. So this is also very critical to observe the normal anterior and posterior tilting, and this one is also seen during this anterior and posterior tilting is also associated with upward elevation and depression of the clavicle. So this anterior and posterior tilting is associated with elevation and depression of the scapula. So that means, because to maintain the contour of the rib cage with that of the scapula, so the scapula during elevation it will not move it straightways, so it will move up and anteriorly, that is causing the anterior tilting. Okay, so during anterior tilting, what you observe, the inferior angle of the scapula is coming backwards. So the inferior angle moves posteriorly when the scapula is tilted anteriorly. Then what happens again, if it is tilting posteriorly, the upper end of the scapula, and the inferior angle will move into the cage. Okay, so this one is the normal anterior and posterior tilting during elevation and depression, because it has to maintain the contact with the rib cage. Okay, so that is the thing happening. So if this anterior tilting occurs beyond the values, that means excessive anterior tilting causes prominence of this inferior angle of the scapula. Okay, and the thing we are seeing in this pic is the abnormal thing. It is an pathological condition where the inferior angle of the scapula is prominently seen. This may be due to poor posture or abnormal posture, and also pure neuromuscular control of this muscles causes this pathological condition of tilting of the scapula. Okay, these are the things which are associated with the scapular motions to maintain the contact with the thoracic cage. These movements are very much important along with the primary movements, that is for internal and external rotation. It is these rotations are associated with protraction and retraction of the scapula, whereas this anterior and posterior tilting is associated with elevation and depression of the scapula. And the scapulothoracic joint stability is maintained by the structures which are associated with acromioclavicular and sternoclavicular joints, give stability to the scapulothoracic joints, And also the muscles that attach to the both the thorax and the scapula are also giving stability to the scapulothoracic joint. So in addition to these two things, stabilization is provided by the scapulothoracic musculature will which pulls or compresses the scapula to the thorax. So those muscles which or also maintains stabilization. Not only the muscles which are attached to the thorax and scapula, and also the other structures which are linked with the acromioclavicular and sternoclavicular joints, and the muscles which pulls or compresses the scapula on the thorax also gives stabilization to the scapulothoracic joint. The ultimate function of the scapulothoracic joint or the scapular motions is to orient the glenoid fossa, orient the glenoid fossa for optimal contact. So orientation of the glenoid for the optimal contact of the head of the humerus during elevation of the arm, and also because of the scapular motion it increases the range of the elevation of the arm. Okay, and these motions also provide a stable base for the controlled motions between the humeral head and the glenoid fossa. These are the main ultimate function of the scapular motion. Whatever the motions like elevation, depression, and protraction and retraction, upward motion and downward motion, whatever the motions taking place in the scapula, the ultimate functions of all these motions is to maintain optimal contact between the glenoid fossa and the head of the humerus during elevation of the arm, and it also provides stable base to these two structures when it is moving. So that means controlled motions between the humeral head and the glenoid fossa. So, and the scapula with its associated muscles and linkages can perform these mobility as well as the stability functions. So this structures forms a premier example of dynamic stabilization in the human body. Okay, so this is about the scapulothoracic joint, scapulothoracic or scapular motions, and scapulothoracic stability. Thank you.